right, make sure test. I think I'm having my test. All right, that looks like it. Okay, cool. Make sure that mic is working. Hope you guys are having a great day wherever you are. Ashk Duan, thanks for joining. If a pilot loses their medical, what other options do they have in the industry which would pay the closest to a pilot job since one has loans to pay? That's a great question. Morning, wherever you are. Where are you from, if I may ask, because it's afternoon where I am right now. But to answer your question, all right, so that I don't forget as the question's rolling. So a lot of airlines do provide opportunities for people that may lose their medical due to whatever reason. What they do is that if, let's say, as long as it's not something that completely puts you out of work, okay? Of course, a lot of jobs will provide insurance, all right? Like coverages for when you're out of job that will cover some part of your income, okay? Assuming you are not working or you're unable to work at all because of any disability. But if, let's say it's minor health issue that prevents you from flying, but you can still work, okay? You can, do the basic human functions, okay? What will happen is that they put you in a different department. They can put you in like if you have some experience in training, they might put you in like a training department. If you have some maybe managerial experience, they might put you in an office role where maybe you're doing some managerial tasks. And yes, you might not make as much as you're making as a pilot, but at least you still have some income. So that's actually a great question. So the point here is, a lot of airlines know that people fall on hard times for various reasons, and they try to provide such room or those type of opportunities for people that may still be able to work. But like I said, if for any reason you're out of work completely due to a critical condition, okay, then your insurance usually kicks in, okay, depending on the airline. And also, that's why it's recommended that you try to have something also that pays, hopefully provide some form of income, okay? But like I said, the airline won't just throw you out, if that makes sense. So good morning, Yi Yong. I hope I said that correctly. Good morning. It works. Ashk India, awesome. Good morning to you, and good morning to you in India, for those of you from India. We got Murky Aviation. Good morning from Highland. Wow. Thanks for joining. That is pretty cool. That's the funny thing about the internet. You get to interact with people from all over the world. Currently, my time, it is 2:30 p.m. And, I often try to come up with ideas and topics and things that I can share with people that are trying to become pilots, because I know that sometimes you don't get your question answered. Sometimes you guys leave comments, reach out to me on Instagram. I don't get to respond right away, or your response or question gets buried in the midst of other comments and things like that. And I try to do this live at least once a week to catch whoever is available at a time, get their questions answered, chat about anything aviation. I'm down with that. This is what I do even if I'm not live. All right, so prior to me coming live, I was checking up news in aviation, just trying to catch up with trends in the industry, because that's how I'm able to come here and share more information that may benefit some of you. I see Ashk said it's midnight here, but I tried to wish a per US, but glad you corrected. It's afternoon there. Yeah, that's fine. I understand. If that's why I said good morning to you, because it's morning for you and it's afternoon for me. So it's okay. It doesn't matter. Hi, Mark Baker. Thanks for joining again. Hope you're doing well. I remember you were trying to, if I'm correct, you're trying to join. I think you're like a second career type person, trying to go into the aviation and trying to find opportunities in aviation. So I hope that is going well for you. Otherwise, hope you're having a great day. Yeah, so I try to come up here, share some of these ideas, knowledge, and tips, get to learn from one another. That's always cool. I'm not the most tech savvy, but sometimes I always want to bring these comments up. Let's see, participants. I don't think I can do that. Okay, maybe this is what I can do. If I pop it out, I can actually bring it up. That's something I could do. Let's see. Yi Young says, I'm from Brunei. It's really near to Singapore. I'm looking to apply to Royal Brunei Airlines Cadet at the end of this year. I'm studying a mechanical engineering degree right now. That's great. What I'm doing to prepare is practice on Microsoft Flight Simulator and also take Discovery Flight, perhaps read Stick and Rudder plus FAA and books. What else should I do to prepare? Great. I like this kind of, you're already doing the work. So it makes it a lot easier for me to know where you're going. Okay. So you're preparing for the Brunei Airlines Cadet program, which, to be honest, I'm not familiar with it. I've not really looked into it. But now that you've brought it up, I'll probably look into it. One thing I would say is that definitely you're doing the right thing by practicing Microsoft Flight Simulator. That would help you to understand some of the, the concepts of flying. In as much as it's not the same as flying a real airplane, it still gives you some of the exposure to the concepts, scanning instruments, knowing how some of the concepts tie together with flying an airplane, right? Like aerodynamics and things like that. So you're doing the right thing. So keep doing that. The next thing is, considering Microsoft Flight Simulator isn't a real thing, you already said you're getting a Discovery Flight done. So that's another great move on your part. The reason why that is a great move is because when you walk into that interview and you walk into that room where you're probably going to be interviewed, right? They want to see that you have some level of motivation in the game, or you have some skin in the game, like they say. So by you taking the Discovery Flight, you have something to show that, you're not just passively waiting for the opportunity to be handed to you. You've gone your way to see and test how you feel getting in an airplane. Like, is this something that you really want to pursue? And by getting that Discovery Flight, it's some form of a motivational factor that shows that you know what you're getting yourself into, and you are not somebody without any experience. So that is definitely a good thing, so I would say that you do that. And next thing, he says, reading FAA and books. That's great. A lot of free resources on. And by the way, I was still looking at that today. I was writing some notes down about situational awareness, workload management, and things of that nature. And I was referencing those materials, and I'm like, man, this is great. It is great that this thing is free and available online, So for you doing that, reading those books, that would help you. Now, the next thing that I will say is that you need to prepare for interviews. You see, when it comes to going to an interview program, that is what really scares. You see, hastening the assessment is one of the challenges. Okay, so think about it in the rungs of a ladder, right? Every ladder has a rung, right? Each step, if you think about it that way, or like a step, or the staircase, if that makes sense. Each step along the way is an opportunity to either advance or get taken out. Now, if you are the type of person that you're good at taking tests, well, up to that interview stage, you might do pretty well because you know how to take tests, right? You know how to write assessments and things of that nature. But interview is where your personality is assessed. Your experiences and your ability to communicate effectively and efficiently is tested. Your ability to work with other people, your ability to think on the spot and answer questions on the spot, that is where it is tested. And that can be challenging for a lot of people if you are not experienced in that realm or in that space. So what I would say is that I don't know how much experience you have interviewing. I don't know how much experience you have with answering questions about your experiences, your competences, okay? Because the more you're able to talk about those experiences and the more you are able to link them to the pilot competencies, the better you will be at that interview. And that is where I think, based on what you've just shared with me, of course, I don't know you, I don't know your experience, I don't know your background, I don't know what your CV looks like, but based on what you just shared with me, I would say that you pay attention to that interview aspect of things. As long as you've ticked all these other boxes, I see Microsoft Flight Sim, I see Discovery Flight, I see FAA and books, things of that nature. The next thing is your ability to communicate that information and your experiences. So that will be the next thing. And of course, hey, before I leave this conversation, one of the first things that you want to make sure you do well will be your CV. Okay. your CV will go a long way because, generally speaking, it's initially scanned with a system, the applicant tracker system. But when you get to an interview, your CV will be in their hands, okay? And they would look at that, okay? I just have a paper here, it's not a CV. They look at that to, get to assess you even before you get in there. And if your CV is done pretty well and you're able to put in the punchlines, let's put it that way, you may have a very good start of interviewing experience, okay? Because you want to start on the right ground, if that makes sense. On the other hand, if your CV isn't well put together, it might be a struggle because you already left a wrong impression on them before you even started. So work on your CV, make sure that is good. Work on those interviewing skills or questions and, get to know them very well. All right, I think I've spent enough time on that. Let's see. For Mark Baker, I have 300 plus hours at Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's great. I've also had a few in-person flying lessons in the Cessna 152. That's great. I mean, you have a lot going on. So if I may ask, if I remember correctly, I thought you were trying to get into like the corporate flying, this is for Mark Baker. I remember we talked about that, or at least you shared that with me anyway. Good evening from Leeds. Thank you so much, Olaseni. Ola. I'm 16 in Y11, year 11, but I think because of the cost of becoming a commercial pilot, I might join through the RAF. Then after 12 years, I'll leave and switch to commercial. That is a great plan. If that is the opportunity that you can get yourself in, then of course, go for it. At the end of the day, in the RAF, hopefully you get to fly as well, okay? And they get to train you, right? And you don't have to bear the cost of training, and you transition to joining the airlines. So that's a great plan. If that is the opportunity you can grab onto it, as long as that's exactly what you want to do. Because hey, 12 years is a long time. It's a lot of commitment, time commitment, family commitment, things like that. So if that's what you want to do, I think it's a good plan. Better Aviation has a site, Royal Brunei to 2023. Better Aviation, I don't know much about that website. Can you give me a few tips for group exercise? How many people would normally be in a group exercise for a cadet program? Okay, for Mark Wick, I guess I probably mixed you up with somebody else. But for a group exercise, generally you'd have about 3 people in a group. Sometimes you may have up to 4, but on average, I would say about 3, depending on the program. You have 3 to 4 people, and your group exercise, the one of the competencies they're testing for is your leadership skill, your communication skill, your teamwork skills. So I always say that put yourself in an environment where you are able to exercise those competencies. That would go a long way. That would help you a lot if you are able to put yourself in an environment where you can exercise those competences. The other thing, sorry, I'm just trying to switch something here. That I'm going to answer your question. I'm trying to just get this started because I try to do this as well to keep this going. Sorry guys. Try to do that. Okay, so I can see that. All right, cool. All right, let's see. The next thing here is he says a bit of aviation. Okay, can you give a few tips for group exercise? How many people would be okay? So few tips for the group exercise. And one of the things I would say is that learn how to talk within a group. All right, that's something that a lot of people fail to account for. It always seems easy until you find yourself in that environment where you have, 2 people assessing you, taking notes on you, on how you're performing, on the things you're saying. That can add a lot of pressure. and then you start to stumble on your words, you start to stumble on the things you're trying to communicate, and your thought process is all jumbled together. So you don't want that to happen. So what you want to do is you want to take the time to think about the exercise you've been given. Of course, they will tell you the objective of the exercise and what you're trying to achieve. So by you taking the time to think through your thoughts properly would help you. That's one thing. The second thing you should also think about doing, and this is more before you even get into that exercise or group exercise environment, take the time to get to know your colleagues. The reason why this is important is when you get to know the people that you guys are interviewing together, the chances are that you would be in the same group as those people. If you are the type of person that you haven't introduced yourself to those other candidates, what will happen is that your relationship can be strained because you haven't created any rapport. So what you want to do is that you want to take the time before you even get to that group exercise room or where you're tested, get to introduce yourself. That way you get to know these people before you step into that room, okay, where you're being assessed, because there's no pressure. You get to know their names, you get to know something about them, and you create that rapport. So that will help you create that bond of you guys are on common page. You guys are working together. So by the time you get into that room where you're being tested, you are already familiar with these people. You guys are not just getting to know each other for the first time. So there's no awkward, vibe between all of you. So that's another thing you should think about. This is before you get into the room. The other thing I will also say is that think about the acronym TDODR. I've shared this on the channel so many times. T as in the time, okay? The D as the diagnosis of the issues that you're experiencing or the problem. So you diagnose the problem, okay? The O will be the options. So list out, 2, 3, 4 options. Hey, the more options you have, the better you're likely to perform. So know the options and have reasons why those options are listed. The next one is the D would then be, that's the next one. By the way, I wish I had pictures, but hey, I don't have pictures to show for it. The next D would then be to decide. Okay, you decide together within the group. Make sure it's a group effort. Make sure everybody's choosing to work together. And you decide on the action to take. And then you put the decision into action so that you guys can get to execute on that. And then after that, you do the next thing, which would then be the review. Okay, you put the action into place, see what outcomes you're getting, and then you review. When you review, you want to review what happened, okay, what you achieved, or what actions you took, the options you took, the actions you took, and then the results you got. Okay, now one of the things that you always remember to always keep in mind is that the goal of a group exercise isn't really about getting a right or wrong answer, because that's not how it works. The goal of a group exercise is to see how you can work together within the group. So don't spend a lot of time trying to get an accurate outcome or a perfect outcome, because it's never going to be perfect. The world is not perfect. Aviation is not perfect. Everything is always changing. So rather, what you want to do is to spend time on the options and go with the decision based on facts. Okay, go with the decision based on facts. So based on the options you've listed, which one makes the most sense, and based on that information, you guys will decide on what to do on that information. Don't spend a lot of time trying to iron out the best action to take. Yes, that's what you're trying to do, but if you spend a lot of time on that deliberation, or you're deliberating on what to do, what will happen is that you run out of time. And generally you have about 15 minutes to conduct this exercise. So you don't want that to happen. You don't want to run out of time during the process. What you want to make sure you do is to get the job done. Okay. I hope that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot more we can talk about that, but I'm going to move on to the next question here, so that I don't spend too much time on that particular one. All right. Since US has a new leader, any type of visa is going to be only harder than before. Do you think it's possible for someone from a foreign land like India to train in the US and get an airline job eventually? You see, being from India is not a problem. The ability to actually integrate into the system, I think, is more of a problem. Okay, so you can be Indian, you can be African, you can be wherever, right? You can be from wherever. And the goal is that to be able to integrate into the system is the only challenge that you would have. Yes, I do. Fadi, yes, I do fly. All right, let's go on to the next one. So getting hired by the airline, what they care about is, do you have a green card? Do you have the ability to work in the US legally? And if you do, then they will hire you. It's not about where you're from, okay? It's all about if you have the legal rights to work in the States. All right. Cool. All right, next one here. I've had experience interviewing. I've been doing pretty well in them. Apart from interviews, another thing is that how do I add those aviation things in the CV? I have robotics internships plus data science. Okay, great question. All right, so this is something that I would say that you do. Think about those pilot competencies. If you haven't seen those videos, go ahead and check my channel. Just type in on the search section of my channel itself. Just type pilot competencies. You see about 2 or 3 videos that I talked about them. And what you want to do is that, for example, you said you studied you have robotics internship plus data science. So you have a lot of technical experience, which is great. Okay, but you need to be able to think outside of the box to apply the competencies to them. So for example, let's assume that one of the things you do is to look at the data to make a decision, right? So that means you have the decision-making skills. That's the way you look at it. So for example, I don't know what decisions you'd make at that job, but you want to look at your data analytics experience and how you're able to make decisions based on those data. So what you want to do is, for example, if you have to make a decision on executing on a project, right? What you want to then say is that regularly make decisions on projects by analyzing data. So you've first thing you've done in there is that you've highlighted that you have the ability to make decisions, okay, or your ability to lead. If you have to make a decision with the group on an action to take, then that might be you were a leader of the I don't know what project you worked on. You stated in there, but make sure you emphasize the leadership role you took. So based on the internship experience you have and the data science experience you have, I can tell that you probably have looked at data to make decisions. You probably have been part of a team to make decisions on things. You probably have worked on activities that maybe put your communication skills to test, right? So for example, if it's efficiently communicating with a group to execute on a project and the results you got, so that's something you can do, right? I always think about the PTAR acronym. The P stands for the pilot competencies being the first one. The T stands for the task that you have to execute on. So what are the tasks you had to execute on? The actions you took. How did you actually contribute to that task? Okay. And then the results. So for example, if you got a result of, for example, this is a very basic example. Let's assume that you work at a front desk, okay, where you have to attend to customers. One of the things you might have done is maybe to improve the system, what do you call it? The what's the system called now? The accommodation system, I think that's what it's called. These are for people that work in the hotel industry. So pretty much the system that they use to check people in, right? There's a name for it. I can't remember now. Maybe you worked on that system and made it more efficient in a way that you reduced the number of people in line waiting, right? If that is what you have experience in, maybe that's something you implemented. So you can say in your CV or on your CV that, hey, you implemented a new system to reduce the number to improve the customer experience of those people of customers that are waiting to check in, right? So that in that process, it shows that you know how to make decisions again. It shows that you also know how to consider the customer service experience, which is good in the aviation industry as well. So, I mean, the list goes on, depending on your experience, depending on your background. There's so many ways you can word this, but the key thing is that you want to think about those competencies and, things like situational awareness, workload management, application of knowledge. You have things like safety as well is important in aviation. You also have things like your leadership skills, your teamwork skills, okay, your ability to provide excellent customer service experience. So those are things that you probably want to highlight on your CV as you go through it, all right? Or as you at least think about it, think about your experiences from the past. The other thing that you want to do is, let's see, get it looked at. Okay, if you can, get it looked at. I would recommend that, just so that you're not missing anything important. Okay. George Moore, hello from London. Did you manage to help some folks from BA Speedboat Academy? I'm going to apply in early January and wondering what to look out for in particular stages, like 2 to 1, like the 2 to 1 interviews. All right. So yes, a lot of people, this is like the second year, all right, of going through that. So yes, a lot of people have started, that I've worked with anyway, in the past. Some of them are in training already. Some of them are about to go for start training next year again. So yeah, so many tips. I've covered a lot of tips on them in my on my channel. You know, the videos that I share. It's all about preparing well in advance. Okay, don't wait until the application opens to start preparing. Start preparing now. You have to work on your CV. You have to write some essays. You don't have to go through the flight school stages as well, right? Where you have to do the math and physics test and room numeracy and things like that. So my advice for you is to start preparing now, even if it's just spending an hour each day to kind of review some of these things that they recommend. I would say that you start doing that right away. It says, could I show you my CV sometime, Stephen? Absolutely. Yes, you can. Now, just so you know, I do actually provide that service of, there are 2 options you have. And if you check the link in the description of this video, you see a link to like a standout there. Now, I haven't made it open because of my timing, all right, my availability and stuff like that. But if you're interested in it, you can check out my, you can reach out to me on Instagram as well, and we can talk more about it, you know. But I do actually provide that. It's a service, so because it takes my time to look at people's CV, right, and give recommendations and things like that. So I would have to charge for that if you're interested in it. Otherwise, if you have 1 or 2 questions that you just want to ask me something, sure, I'm willing to give you that information for free, because I know how important that is, you know. But if you want me to spend time with you and kind of go back and forth, unfortunately, I would have to you would have to pay for that time as well, because I have to make time out of my own schedule to make it happen. All right, let's see, Mark Baker, I think you've mistaken me with another person, Steven. I plan to fly commercially, not corporate flying. Yes, I realized that there was another person that came on live. This was a while ago, actually. The person was a second career fellow, and he was sharing his goals of flying corporate, and we're kind of sharing some tips on how to get into that. All right, Olashini, thank you. And yeah, I was agreeing with you. 12 is a lot, absolutely. I've researched about cadet programs like BA Speedboat program. Do you have any advice on the best way to become a pilot? Yeah, I mean, considering you're in the UK, okay, and you have the ability to apply to these programs, the only advice I would say is that prepare for those programs. You know, there's so many. There's TUI. There's the Speedboat program. And then you have the let me move this out of the way. I'm sorry, interact. I'm gonna turn this thing off. Cool. All right. So yeah, you have the TUI, you have Aer Lingus. There's so many of them out there, and you want to just take advantage of those programs. And just so you know, people get selected. Okay, more than 100 and close to 150 people got selected this last time. The previous one was around 100 and something as well, maybe 102 or so. About 100 was what it was the number, but I think it went up to 102 if I remember correctly. So yeah, take advantage of it. You know, don't disqualify yourself. Try for it. You just never know. Okay, just never know. All right, let's see. Next one is what's the best way to build hours? I'm almost finished my commercial license and I don't know how to feel with being an instructor. Madvika, I hope I said that correctly. So the best way to build hours is what you run away from, being an instructor. Okay, if you become an instructor, you can get your hours for free, kind of. On the other hand, if you don't want to become an instructor, okay, because maybe commitment, time and all that, then what I would say is that you want to find a partner, they call them time building, right? I don't know if you're in the US, if you're training in the US. Over here, they call it time building, where you can partner with people and you guys can go flying together, right? So you rent an airplane, maybe 2 people, maybe 3 people if you like, and then you just fly around. But in my opinion, to me, I feel like that isn't an efficient way of training. Yes, it may be cheap. It's not really cheap, actually. Now that I think about it, I mean, yes, when you split it amongst 2 to 3 people, yes, it might be cheaper than renting it by yourself. But in the long run, you would spend more money doing that, especially if you're trying to build a lot of hours. I don't know how many hours you're trying to build, but if you're trying to build, let's say 1,500 hours, yeah, that might be a lot. You know, especially as when you finish with 250 hours and you're trying to get to 12. You're trying to build another 1,250. So that might be a long one, you know, and it might get really expensive if you try to just time build. So my advice is you focus on trying to become an instructor if you can. On the other hand, you might be able to find other opportunities that lets you fly for them and you get paid. Like, for example, maybe it's banner towing, area photography, crop dusting, things of that nature, right? That do not require you to have 1,500 hours and you're just flying somebody or flying a small plane, you know, to build hours. So that's always an option as well. But you don't have those. A lot of those opportunities are not that common, so they can be hard to come by. But yeah, that's really what I would say. LHR Sports. What should I do to pursue my career and aim to go to the Speedbird Pilot Academy? I'm currently 14 and do RAF Air Cadets. Is there anything I should do to gain an advantage against others? Well, great. You're starting at the right age. You're doing the right thing by doing the RAF Cadet. The other thing I would recommend is, you know, work on your aviation knowledge, right? And get familiar with those pilot competencies that I talk about quite often, and find ways to, considering your age, you know, find ways to put yourself in an environment where you can act as a leader. I know it might be hard, but in the area of cadets, I'm sure you can find yourself in positions where you are maybe leading a group, leading a team, taking on a leadership role. The other thing also is put yourself, considering in your area of cadets, that again, you get exposed to like working within the team, okay? So that's something that would help you gain some experience. And that way, here's the thing, right? You may be very good at taking tests, like I shared earlier with some other people that were here earlier. The problem always comes when you get into interviews. So your ability to communicate this, to share this knowledge and the experiences that you've acquired, you know, comes down to your ability to think and apply those competencies to your experiences. And if you don't have the experiences, it may be harder for you. So spend time to intentionally put yourself in an environment where you can gain quality experiences, and that way you're able to exercise these competencies with other people, and then they become part of you, right? They become part of your story, because when you walk into that interview, what they are looking for is transferable skills, okay? What they are looking for is transferable skills, and they want to make sure that you have what it takes to become a pilot. Next one is I'm currently studying an aviation technology degree so I can fulfill the educational requirements for the Aer Lingus Future Pilot Program. I'm currently working at baggage handling at Dublin. Great. Yeah, so that's a good thing as well, because you already have you're getting that degree, okay? That would help you. You're gaining a lot of knowledge, all right? But don't forget, one of the important things is the practical application of these experiences. It's good to have the knowledge, it's good to have the degree, because it shows that you're interested in the industry, you're interested in becoming a pilot, and you have the knowledge to back it up. But the experiences are also important. Similar advice that I gave to LH Sports is what I would tell you as well. Try to find ways to implement that knowledge, all right? And try to find ways to implement them in different environments. So one of the things you can think about is volunteering can help. Okay, if you have time to volunteer, even if it's an hour a week or an hour a month, it doesn't matter. Maybe it's an hour of your time that you volunteer in a place where you help out. that's something that is good on your resume, but also it's good. It's a place where you might be able to use your skills, put them to use, and help other people. So that'll be good. You know, that'll be good for you. Let's see. Actually, I wanted to do this and I didn't do it. Sorry. Let me try to fix that right now. I'm going to do that right now. YouTube Studio. I might do this one so that you guys can see. May not be the best. Let's see. Probably not the best that I would want. Sorry guys, I'm trying to do something. Trying something out. I haven't done this particular thing before, so I want to see what that would look like so you guys can follow along. What? Yay. Why is it this way? Okay, no idea. Window capture. Let me do that. If I spend all this time and this thing doesn't work, I wouldn't be happy because I'm really taking away from. Let me do that. Almost there, guys. Just almost there. Almost there. Okay, maybe this may be good. Let me know what you think. All right, let me know what you think. Is this a good idea? Is it a bad idea? All right, give me a thumbs up if it's a good idea. Otherwise, I'll go back to the previous screen. Okay, let's pick up from where we stopped. All right, the next one is let me see. I didn't miss that one. I'm planning on starting on doing my PPL next year. That's so. Hey, Marky. One thing I want to make sure is that I'm guessing you're trying to apply to the Speedbird or any of these other programs as well, because considering your age, I believe you. How old are you again? Let me go back. I believe. Did you tell me your age? Oh no, that was LH Post that told me his age. I mean, if you qualify for those programs, I think you should try them as well. However, I doubt that Aer Lingus will continue to do the cadet program, as it only lasts up to 2027, and by the year we'll have gotten up to 90 pilots. Yeah, I don't know, honestly. So these cadet programs, you just have to take them take the opportunity as it's available to you. You know, you can't really predict when they would be available and when they would shut them down. You just never know. But while it's there, I would say you take advantage of it, and it would have been the same year graduate. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. All right, everything aviation. Should I take the modular route and work while studying, or should I work for a few years, stacking my money to go for the integrated route? So this is a very personal question, in the sense it's hard for me to say both of them are good, right? If you have the ability to do modular training while you're studying, then sure, go for it. On the other hand, if you think it's going to be a lot for you to handle, then I would say, sure, maybe you work and save your money and then get into it. But one thing I'll say is that the more time you spend waiting, you're likely to, life gets in the way, okay? And maybe, I don't know how old you are, but one thing I'll say is that life gets in the way, and in the process of waiting, you're likely going to be waiting for a long time, unless you're very determined and you set your mind to it and you know that you can, commit to it. But one thing I always say is, if you want to do something and you have the room and the bandwidth to go for it, then I'll say start now, because when you start, there's a higher probability that you would finish. But when you're saying you're going to start, or projecting that you're going to start 5 years or 4 years, 3 years from now, the probability is that it may never happen because it's way out there in the future. So sometimes it's best to just take the bull by the horn and get started with it. I mean, I've been there myself, so coming from experience. Coming from experience. All right, let's see. So yeah, it doesn't matter which one you take, whether modular route or integrated route. The point is that, you know, do the one that suits your schedule, that works with your schedule. Okay. At the end of the day, it's your dream, it's your goal. Some flight schools do. I know some flight schools do cater to like integrated programs only. But you know, you might need to find a flight school that will let you do either, right? So you can choose. Lux from Zambia in Southern Africa. Hey, Lux Banda, thanks for joining. You know, talking about people from Africa, I'm from Africa. I grew up in Nigeria myself, and one of the challenges that we have is aviation opportunities. I saw a comment on my channel. I didn't reply to the comment. That was intentional, and the person said, "Oh, I should talk about African opportunities." I'm like, you know, it's not like I don't want to talk about African opportunities in Africa. I do. I mean, I talk about opportunities everywhere. The problem is that if there isn't anything to talk about, then there's nothing I'm going to talk about. If there's something for me to talk about, then I will talk about it. I'm not going to be selective, especially when it comes to an opportunity in the aviation industry that I know how difficult it is to get into, and I know how difficult it was for me to get into it, and I know what the hurdle is for a lot of people like me. So, you know, asking me to talk about it, it's kind of I don't want to say insulting. It's as if I'm trying to be selective of the opportunities I talk about, you know. But I understand that the person may not grasp the hurdle that a lot of African airlines are experiencing. In as much as they are growing, they are not expanding opportunities for aspiring pilots. That is just a simple fact. You know, I've covered this in the past where I talked about the opportunity that these airlines have and the leverage they could have if they are willing, right? Because it's a pipeline process, right? You can take this person from zero, train them at a discount because of the leverage that you have, hire them and pay them somewhat at a discount because you paid for their training. So you're not paying, you know, exactly what you would pay somebody that came from the street, and tie them to a bond for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, depending on how much you spend. And then eventually they have the free will to go wherever they want to go. But the airlines in Africa don't do that, and they don't have this cadet program. The only country that I know has some form of program is South African Airways, and they haven't even run their program in a while. So, you know, it's somewhat disappointing when you don't find opportunities like that. But hey, I will talk about every opportunity that I come across, whether it's from the moon or from the sun. Issa Diallo, hello. I've spoken about becoming a pilot to my dad who flies privately. He advised me to get a master's degree for me, chemistry, and then pursue a career in aviation later on. What do you think? All right. So here's what I'm going to say, Issa Diallo. Okay. Getting a master's degree is cool. Okay. That's good. However, I don't know how long it's going to take you to get that. Okay. If it's going to take you, I mean, let me go by my quick numbers in my head right now. So you finish high school, 17, 18, you go get a 4-year bachelor's degree, another 4 years, so you're 22, and then you do a master's program. Let's assume you get right into a master's program. So my best numbers right now is you're 24. Let's just say 25, okay? So you're 25, you have a master's degree. Guess what? A lot of people are already at the majors, depending on where you're from. Okay, I don't know what country you're in. I don't know what decision your country is, but a lot of people are already at their final airline at 25. Okay, and that means they have about 40 years because the retirement age in the US anyway is 65. So that means they have 40 years to spend working and doing what they love. Okay, so my question for you, Issa, is that Issa Diallo. Okay, if you're still there, my question for you is, by the time you finish your master's degree, that you are not going to use unless something happens. It's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I have a master's degree as well, so I would say that you go for it. It's a good thing. But why delay your training? Your training will take you at least you train for about 2 years, then you have to get your hours to join the airline, depending on where you're from, where you are right now. It will take you 3-4 years before you get to an airline. Okay. So let's say you're 25, you add another 3 years of training, getting your hours, you're already 28, almost 30 at this point, if your timing is right. So, that, to me, I would say that, yes, it's a good thing to get your master's degree, but I would advise that maybe get your bachelor's. This is just my opinion. Not that I'm not saying that your dad is wrong. Your dad is correct, because he probably wants you to have a backup and have a strong foundation or something to fall back on in case something goes wrong in aviation, because it occasionally happens. Okay. I get that. But what I also say is, what about if you do it this way? What about if you could get your degree? Okay, so you're about, let's say 22, you get your degree, 22, 23, you go do your training, all right? So you spend another 3 years or so getting your training done. So by 26, you find yourself at an airline building some experience. Then somewhere along the way, you can go get your master's degree. Because remember, your master's degree isn't needed to get a job in the airlines. In fact, you don't need your degree, your bachelor's degree, to get a job at the airlines. So my opinion, my own advice is, the sooner you start your training, the better for you, because you have a very limited amount of time to exercise your privileges as a pilot. And in as much as 40 years, assuming you start at 25 to 65, 40 years is a long time, but majority of people don't start that way. Some people are starting at 40. Okay, some people are starting at 30. So it's rare for you to see somebody get 40 years. I mean, there's a lot of younger people nowadays getting into the airlines at 23. But the point here is, can you get your master's degree while you fly? Absolutely. Okay, can you get your bachelor's degree while you're flying professionally? Absolutely. So do you need your master's degree or your bachelor's to get into flying? No. So if you have the means to pursue flying right now, get your degree. If you have the means to pursue flying after your degree, assuming you don't want to combine the two, then sure, go for it. Okay, I think I've kind of covered that. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I hope that makes sense. How hard do you think how hard do you think the actual physical aspect of takeoff and landing of a flight is? Jasmine, hi. It's interesting you asked that question. It is not hard. Okay, now I take it back. For the inexperienced, the landing can be challenging. Okay, if you ask anyone in the training environment what they struggle with before they go on their solo flight where you fly alone, generally is the landing. Okay, generally is the landing. The takeoff isn't hard. Okay, the landing isn't hard. It's just that you haven't gotten as an inexperienced pilot or student pilot, it can be it can be a lot of information at once. All right, you're processing a lot of things at the same time, and that can kind of box you in to focus on one thing. You get fixated on one aspect. But landing, there's a lot of things going on, so you have to be able to multitask and divide your attention between multiple things and make the appropriate inputs. Your height, your stick and rudder, your stick and rudder skills, your scanning skills, your reaction skills. All those things all come into play with landing. So it's not hard. It's just that the fact that you're inexperienced can make it challenging. So if that makes sense, I hope I explained that the best way I can. Actually, by integrating into the system, do you mean integrating into the local culture, socialized network outside of my community? Because I'm not afraid of that and already interact with many foreigners here. Okay, so what I mean by that is integrating into the, becoming a permanent resident. That's what I mean by integrating. So when you come, I don't know if you've applied for the visa before, but you can come in with an F1 or an M1 for training. And if you're coming for training, you can come in either on the F1 or M1, and your ability to change and switch from F1 or M1 to like a permanent resident is what I mean by integrating into the system. So that can be difficult depending on what route you take, and that's what prevents a lot of people from joining the airlines even after they train. So I hope that makes sense. Wasn't sure how likely it would be for me to get work permit if I do instructor rating, as employer would have to go through paperwork from their end, and that may take. That is correct. So a lot of companies actually do. They don't want to deal with that paperwork. Some schools occasionally, flight schools occasionally would file for the student, but that is not common. Okay, that is not a common thing. Generally speaking, they want somebody that already has already met the requirement. All right, George Moore, what are your thoughts on the MPL programs? I was recently advised at a pilot expo to include a contract option for a whitetail course if the airline pulls out. So any program that offers an MPL, any airline that offers an MPL program, a cadet program, and they will train you, I think it's still better than nothing, right? The ability to include that option for a whitetail course, I honestly cannot advise you on that. Okay, the reason why I understand what you mean by the MPL, because the MPL program is limited to the airline, right? You can't transition or use that experience technically in another airlines. You always have to start all over again. So I understand that concern, George Moore. But what I would say is that, when it comes to the contract discussions and all that, I honestly, that is way outside of my area of competence. Let's put it that way. But it's not a bad suggestion, considering the MPL can be restricting in a way. Now, would they pull out and leave you hanging? I don't know. I don't know how often that happens. I honestly don't know. I wish I could share more on that. 4J, from your flight school days, if you can remember, was it a lot of self-study? Yes, absolutely, 4J. You have to be, dedicated to study on your own. I mean, any ATPL program that you go through or flight training program, it's really on you. You need to be able to pull the books and study. And honestly, one thing I had going for me was I was an international student. One, I didn't have the ability to work, so I couldn't work, right? And all I had to do was to focus on training. So every day, the only thing I focused on was training, right? I mean, I wasn't flying every day, but hey, even when I didn't have money, okay, and I ran out of money, because that happened, I was still doing something related to flying, not flying, but like reading, studying, practicing, going over the procedures and things of that nature. So yeah, it's a lot of self-study, and that's why you need to be motivated. You need to have the self-discipline to go through these programs. Otherwise, you may struggle if you're not willing to sit down and study on your own. It's gonna be harder than it should. Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 is releasing this month. How do you think it compares with X-Plane 12? Because the graphics are better on okay, but many say the flight model and works Great. So you know what is funny? Ash K, this question here. I haven't looked at any flight simulator. I'm talking about the Microsoft Flight Sim or X-Plane. I haven't touched those things in a very long time. Why? Because two things. One, I actually have the accessibility to use the simulator at my job. Okay, so if I feel like I want to fly and use the sim, I can go use the sim at the job. And even though it's not a full flight, it's not a full motion sim, it's almost like a training device in a way. It still has all the bells and whistles, if that makes sense. So I get to use the real thing if I want to. All right. Now I know some people are always very nerdy. They get into talking about Microsoft Flight Sim. I'm not that person. Now, have I used it in the past? Absolutely. I've used it in the past a lot of times. I never used X-Plane. All right. I never used X-Plane. All I used was the Microsoft Flight Sim. So I honestly cannot say much on that. Kwedu, hey, Steven, hope you're doing well. And I'm doing well. Thank you. What would be the suggested career path for someone studying aerospace engineering in university but still wants to be a pilot? So for someone studying aerospace engineering, what I would say is that you already in the path, you're already somewhat in the area, right? If your goal is to become a pilot, then depending on where you are, let me see, a cadet program's worth the time, especially after completing the degree. Absolutely. Depending on where you are, I don't know what country you're in. Okay, I don't know what programs are available to you wherever you are located. But if you have the ability to apply to these programs, then take the opportunity to do so, especially because you have an aerospace degree or engineering degree. That's going to be a very strong selling point for you. And secondly, you would have the technical and the technical knowledge and then the degree to back it up. Okay, so that definitely helps with the application and going through those cadet programs. However, what I'll say is, if those cadet programs don't work out, finishing the program and maybe trying to raise the funds for it will be the way to go. That's really it. I mean, scholarships can be an option, but remember, scholarships don't cover everything. All right, the scholarship will only cover a portion of your training. It won't cover the full training. So unless you get into a sponsored program like a cadet program, a pilot cadet program, that's the only way you can get a full ride. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Okay, now the other option I always say to Kwedu is if you can join the military, that might be an option for you depending on where you're from. All right, let's see. Next one here, JK Moon. I was told by flight school to avoid any flight school that do the ground theory and flying at the same time. Is this good advice? Should I avoid? So you were told by flight school to, let me see, to avoid a school that does the ground theory and flying at the same time. You know, that is a very subjective view, okay, because I believe, okay, that it's best you actually do the two together. I trained that way and it worked because you learn and then you apply. All right, so you learn about aerodynamics, all right, how lift is generated, what drag does, how thrust can be controlled, how you can change your pitch and control your airspeed, all these factors, right? And then you go on the airplane and then you fly and then you apply those things and then you see what happens. Oh, when I put the flaps down, this is what happens to the speed. This is what happens to lift. This is what happens to drag. This is what happens to the airplane when I pitch up. When I push down, this is what happens, right? So your ability to use the knowledge that you've just acquired and put it to use on the airplane, which helps you to retain information for a long time because you've been able to apply it and you've seen it, you've felt it, all right, makes learning much more coherent and makes it much more lasting because you will likely not forget. On the other hand, when you study all the theory, okay, and I know that's how it's done in the EU region, you know, in most of other parts of the world where they make you do all these exams first and then you go and fly. Guess what? Yes, you've passed all the exams, but most of the time you've just memorized and you've passed. You haven't really applied any practical knowledge to that thing. I mean, yes, you get to it, but hey, it all depends on you. It all depends on what you want to do. It all depends on the school, the program, the place you're in, all those factors. But in the US, I know that the way it's mostly done is you learn and then you fly and then you go back to learning more and then you fly some more and then you slowly progress through the both curriculums, the practical and the theoretical aspect simultaneously. Unlike the way it's done in Europe and other parts of the world where you do just the theory first, take all the exams, pass all the exams, and then you now go apply, go fly. In my opinion, that's just memorization. You're just memorizing I mean, it works for them, okay? But it's just memorizing to pass, and then you then dump everything out, and then you now start learning the practical thing, which, hey, If it works for them, it works for them, you know, but that's not how I was trained. Let's see. What is your story? From what I understand, you're from another country and you're currently working in the US as a pilot. How did you pull it off? Maybe you can make a video about your journey. And hey, Ashke, actually, yes, that's a great question. I have actually shared this in the past, but I'm going to give you a brief summary of it right now. All right. I started flight training in 2010. Originally, I grew up in Nigeria, moved over to the States 2010 in Florida, started training, got my private done, moved on to my instrument, got my commercial done by 2011, towards the end of 2011. Started in my instructor training to become an instructor, went through all the ratings, CFI, CFII, then eventually got sponsored by the flight school to do my MEI, which is a multi-engine instructor rating. Then I instructed at the flight school from 2012 to 2015. At the end of 2015, I joined the regional airlines in the United States. Between that time, between 2012 and 2015, while I was instructing, I ended up getting my master's degree in aeronautical science, and then I joined the airline in 2016. Started working for the airline, a regional airline, became a captain, all that stuff. Was there for about 5 years. Then I moved on to join United, and now I'm with FedEx. So that's the short version of my story. I see. James S., you're dropping gems, bro. Keep up the great work. Great. Thank you so much, James. I appreciate that. Thanks, Issa Diallo. I see the thumbs up. I believe that's for the thing that I have on the screen. I don't know what to call it. But anyway, showing the chat is what you meant. So thank you. Let's see. Next one here is, do Ethiopian Airlines not offer for African cadets? It's sad as many African airlines have been liquidated from 2004 onwards. You know what, Kwedu, from your name, I'm guessing you're from somewhere in Africa. If you don't mind, if you could share that, I would appreciate it. But the reason why that is so common, okay, what you just said, that is so true. Like even in Nigeria, right? All the airlines that I grew up knowing, most of them have already shut down. And the ones that are still existing are probably just, they're surviving by the thread, you know? And that is unfortunate. So all the programs that they used to have, like you're right, Ethiopian Airlines used to have like a cadet program, but they stopped all those things. Like I said, the only one that has it right now, well, I don't think they even run it anymore, is South African Airways. But I don't think they run it, you know? So yeah, Sahat Moore, great work, man. Thank you. Issa Diallo, I'll be 22 to 23 years old by the time my master's degree will be completed. Currently 17. That's great. I mean, if you're 23 and you have a master's degree, then you have some time on your hands, you know, to still go into training. So if that is the timeline that you have and you can get your master's done by 22, 23, that is awesome, man. Then of course you can still pull it off and get your ratings done, flight training done by 26 at most. Join an airline by that time. So that might be good, you know. And you're welcome, all right? David White, I've just done a degree in physics, finished in summer, and now I feel quite behind others as it took 3 years and was full-time, but it does give me a good backup though. Absolutely. So, you know, that was exactly what I was telling Issa Diallo earlier as well, right? You know, time can be, if time is on your side, you want to take advantage of it. If you know, like he just shared, he's going to be 23. So 23 is definitely still a great time to get into flight training. I was 21 when I started. So, you know, it's definitely a great time, a great age to start in flight training as well. Now for David White, I don't know how old you are. I know what you mean by feeling behind, but hey, you know, if it's a dream, it's not about others, you know, it's about you. It's about what you want to do. It's about what you want to achieve. It's about the dream that you had maybe as a kid to achieve this goal of flying. So if that is what you still want and you still believe in, then it's not about others, it's about you. So take the time, do a soul searching, okay, and see if that's still what you want to do and go for it. You know, go all in for it. I know people that started at 40, and I'm guessing you're not 40. I know people that started at 50, and they still are still doing okay. You know, they're still doing good. Yes, they may not have a lot of time in the career, but it's an opportunity that they can still get to achieve their dreams. You know. Everything aviation. Thank you so much for all the help. I really appreciate it. You're making a huge difference. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Hiyo, thinking of starting my flight training in Nigeria, God's willing soon. But do you think it's realistic to get a job when I'm done with training? Great question, Ayo. I think it is important to say that Nigeria, Africa in general, is becoming a very, is an emerging market. All right, in industry, in the sense that they are still growing. A lot of developments are being made. People are flying more. Yes, I know inflation is ridiculously high in Nigeria, and maybe not a lot of people are flying right now. But that would change depending on what your age is, right, and how much you have in terms of, are you able to train and get your training done? If you can, then I would say that you get it done, because not a lot of people can afford to train in Nigeria, to be specific, right? 2, the airlines are expanding. 3, in Africa as a continent, a lot of these airlines, you don't have to work in Nigeria. I have a lot of my friends, by the way, a lot of my friends that we train together, they don't work in Nigeria anymore. Most of them are flying for acing, that's the name of the airline. It's in, I believe, Cotonou, somewhere there, but it's owned by Ethiopian Airlines, right? And then you have a lot of them flying for Fly Dubai, Emirates. What's the other one again? There's another one out there. Fly Dubai, Emirates, Qatar, right? So the point here is, you don't have to fly in Nigeria if it's for you to get your experience, and because flying is, it's a global thing. You can find yourself anywhere and still fly. I mean, there's some the requirements that you need to meet to fly in different parts of the world. But as a Nigerian, these are places where people are flying. Other parts, other countries, is definitely an option. So you don't have to think about flying in Nigeria. So yes, you will definitely get a job. That one I can say. Maybe not in Nigeria. Maybe in Nigeria, you will get a job. Okay. Mercury Aviation, I'm 22 and I'm about to start Pitbird program. I did ask you about that in a few previous videos, which you probably never find anyways. However, in the comment, I mentioned the educational requirement, as I only did my education in Ireland and not in the UK. Do I have the right to live and work both Ireland and UK? I do have the right. So if you have so from what I know, right, if you go to the FAQ section of the Speedwell program, they address some of these questions. I don't know if you've checked that out. Where they talk about how you can convert, I'm not familiar with the education system in Ireland and in comparison to the UK completely. But what I know is that, you can convert your certificates, if that makes sense, from wherever you are to the UK standards, which is GCSE standards, right? So I believe that is something you can do. And since you have the right to live and work in both places, then you can apply. So I wouldn't want you to not apply. There's a way. I can't start trying to find that information right now because it might take me a minute. But what I'm going to say is that if you check the FAQ section, this has been addressed. I've seen this multiple times where people will say, they studied in one place and they want to apply to the Speedwell program. Can I apply? Can they apply? And the answer is generally yes. You can apply because you've met one of the biggest requirements, which is the ability to live and work in the UK. The education requirements, as long as you have an equivalent, you're able to convert it, then that's something that you can always do. All right. Just hold on. All right. Sorry, guys. I had to take that call real quick. Okay, let's see. I'm in the UK. I'm a permanent resident. Oh, that's great. But I applied for the TUI and British Airways with the help of your videos last year. I got through the video stage, but I messed up on the announcement. Oh, no. Scholarships have been insanely hard to find. That is correct. Okay, so yes, you see that video stage can be tricky. And, it's all about practice. You can stumble on your words. It's something that a lot of people don't expect. So, practice it. I mean, it's funny, right? I'm sure a lot of people will see some of the videos I make now and they might be, I don't know, maybe impressed that, oh, I can share my ideas, and it seems like I'm very fluent in sharing my ideas, but it's taken a long time. It's taken a long time to get there, and that's because practice and just being intentional. Am I perfect? No. Do I still stumble on my words sometimes? Yes, I do. But does that mean that the idea isn't passed across? No, because at the end of the day, if you stumble, you fix it and correct and get back at it. So the same thing you want to do right now. You have the opportunity to practice, and work on your math skills, interviewing skills, speaking skills, communication skills, all that stuff, right? And then go in for it again. Now, one thing I always say is that it's always, and I've always tried to do this. I haven't decided on how I'm going to go about it. Honestly, like, I know that when I say practice, sometimes it can be boring trying to sit down by yourself and talking to yourself, right? Maybe trying to share your why, why you want to be a pilot, or why you want to fly for a particular airline, and trying to say it out loud, because it's easy. It's very easy to think about it, right? But when you are actually saying it out loud, sometimes it doesn't come out just right. The way you think is not the same way you speak. It requires a different type of I'm not a neurosurgeon, or somebody that deals with how the neural networks work in the brain, but at the end of the day, it's not the same things. It's not the same neural path that you use to communicate, and it's not the same thing as the way you think. It takes a lot of it takes a different skill, let's put it that way, to be able to think and then say it out the way you're thinking. So the point here is, it does take practice. It does take some time. Don't give up. Try again. That's what you do. All right. It doesn't cost you anything for most part to try again. All right. Merck Aviation, would BA still accept me if I have a bachelor's degree in Ireland? Yes. As Hellingers does similar thing where they would take in applicants who did their GCSEs. From what I heard, from what I know, with TUI, by the way, all right, with TUI, if you have a bachelor's degree, they would still take you. And if my guess is it's most likely going to be the same, all right, for BA as well. Okay, but hey, like I always say, I don't work for them. I'm not the right point of contact for some of those questions, right? But from what I've seen, from what I've gathered, I believe they would. Okay. All right. Yi Young, is mechanical engineering relevant to applying to be a pilot? Is it relevant? Technically, yes. Practically, no. Okay. Yes, the technical knowledge, your math, your ability to think critically, your ability to multitask, and yeah, those things may help. But practically is a different skill, right? Flying is totally different. So yes, it will help you to be able to see things from a different, perspective. But flying is a different thing entirely as well. So remember, that's why they always say that you don't need a degree to become a pilot, because if it was needed, then they would say that you need a degree, right? But having a mechanical engineering degree would help. I wouldn't say it's relevant. Okay, it would help, but I wouldn't say it's relevant, because you don't necessarily need any degree, right, to become a pilot. I hope that makes sense. All right, let's see. Thank you so much. It's nice to see another insight. That's great. You're welcome, JK Moon. For Jay, what would you say is a more effective and efficient way to go about acquiring your ATPL? Modular while working, or work then save and greater cost? Thank you. It's funny, somebody asked that question not too long ago, but what I said was the two things. If you are able to do both, in this case, modular, right, and working at the same time, then I would say that to do it, because when you start, your chances of finishing increases, all right, because you started. When you plan to save up money, guess what? See how money works? Money, sometimes you save up, and if you're not very committed to it, you'll find something else to spend your money on. So, or something else will come up that will require you to spend that money, right? So if you believe that you have the bandwidth and the ability to work and do modular, then I would say it's better. I prefer starting now and working my way towards, the goal, than waiting to save up money, because I'm adding more hurdles to cross. So that means I have to save up money first, which might take me, I don't know, to save $100,000 might take me 5 years, right? And then go and start training, which will take another 3 years. So now I've spent 8 years or so to achieve my goal. So personally, I would lean on the side of going modular, starting right away, and kind of go as you go, pay as you go. So that way you're not waiting. And since you've started, you're likely to finish. All right. How old were you when you first worked as a pilot? When I first worked, okay, I think I need to get that right. So when you say worked, I'm guessing worked as an airline pilot. I was 26. I was 26 when I got my first airline job, if that makes sense. Kwedu Ghanaian. Oh, I see. Makes sense. Thank you. Ghana. I'm sure you've heard this saying, Ghana jollof, Nigerian jollof, right? Which one do you like? Be honest. All right, let's move on. Here on essay, do you think I have a chance competing against people with years of experience in the aviation industry as a student wishing to apply to the 2-week cadetship or British Airways? Absolutely, you do have a chance. Okay, you do have a chance. To let you know, I don't know how old you are. An 18-year-old got through the program 2 years ago. So, and even this time around, a lot of young candidates go through as well. So sometimes it's not about your experience. It's about how you communicate those experiences and how you're able to link them to those pilot competences. It's not about the experience. You see, sometimes having a ton of experience can work against you because you are conditioned to think in a certain way. You are conditioned to want to, because of the experience you have, to get overconfident and think that you are more than you think you are, right? When in reality, you are not saying anything important to those people listening to you, those interviewers, because you are literally just saying a lot of things, but you're not highlighting your competent skills that makes you a competent candidate or pilot, So it's not about experiences. I don't want you to get discouraged because you don't have a ton of experience. It's all about how you are able to say and talk about the little experience you have and highlighting those competencies through them. Okay. All right, Yi Young, are university GPA and grades important to applying to be a pilot? Absolutely. Yi Young, absolutely. You got to remember, most of the time they want you to have for example, GCSE level in the UK. They always say you need to have a certain grade or score, and it is important. Now, in order to train, you don't need a degree. So your GPA isn't a requirement, if that makes sense. You don't need to have a certain GPA. However, when you walk into an interview and they look at your grades and your grades are not that stellar or, average or below average, okay, that is a red flag. That is a red flag. So your GPA itself, even though a university degree is not required, even though your GPA may not be stated that is needed, okay, maybe 3.0 or 4.0, right, is needed on the application, it says a lot about who you are when you show up to an interview. Your grades, your GCSE grades, your grades from high school, secondary school, right, from your certificate and all that, those things says a lot about who you are. And like I said, the better they are, the better you look, right? I hope that makes sense. As I'm a second year university student, think leaving the cadet program till after, as I have full-time commitment. However, it did put me off for a while. Yeah, I see that. If you have a lot of things going on and you think you can't, you don't have the room to take on extra work, because those things can be a little tasking. You got to show up, you got to prepare, you got to study. It might be a lot. So if you want to put it off, that's up to you. It's a personal decision. But one thing I will say is that, remember, there are no guarantees that these programs will be there 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. There are no guarantees because you never know what is around the corner, right? And if they take it away, that means you can apply again at that time. At the same time, considering you are in school, I want that to go away. You may not be able to go to training because you're in school. Because if you're selected, you need to devote 18 months or so, 16 to 18 months to training. So you may not be able to do that. So it might just make sense for you to, take a step back and not go for it, But that is a personal decision. That's up to you. Platino, I'm wondering, if I get a bachelor's degree, should I do modular training while I work if I do not have the funds? I think I've covered this. This is the third time, but I'm going to say it here again. Yes, if you can do modular training while working, go for it. I think that is a better way to start the process. Get it started. Like I always say, when you start, you're likely to finish. When you're waiting to save up money and save up the funds and finish something, you haven't started. You're just having thoughts. You have this dream, but you haven't started pursuing it. But when you start it, you're likely to finish. So my personal advice is start it if you can, and you have the room to take on that extra work, and then continue with it. And chug along. There'll be delays here and there. You might be working sometimes, but if it's what you want to do, go for it. David White, coming up on 22, I'm paying back student debt from my degree and saving for flight training. This is the main thing making me feel behind. I see. That's why your content on scholarship programs is so helpful. I see what you mean. If I may ask, David White, where are you? Are you in the US, UK? Where's that? Yeah. Because the reason why I asked is that if you are in the UK, okay, or EU region where you can apply to these cadet programs, then I would say go all in on cadet programs, right? Go all in, and hopefully you can, because you have a degree, so you have you have something going for you on that. You are young, still at the right age, perfect age, in my opinion. So I'll say go all in. If you're in the US and you're having to worry about, you're looking for scholarship programs, then one thing I'll say is that the scholarship programs, even in the US, are not, they only pay a portion of your training. So in order for you to rely fully on a scholarship to cover your training or your cost of training, I would say is an unrealistic expectation. A lot of times they would only provide maybe 4,000, maybe 5,000, at most maybe 10,000, right, at a time. And there's no guarantees that you get the next one, right? So it would be an unrealistic expectation to want to rely on scholarships like that, because you have to apply to so many. Your chance of getting them will be, you just don't know if you ever get them, right? So anyway, that's something to keep in mind. All right. But honestly, best of luck to you. I understand how you feel about student debt, D1, since you agreed US employer probably won't want to deal with the hassle of paperwork for a foreigner, and it's very difficult. How did you pull it off? Are you still on a work visa, or do you have a green card? Oh, I have a green card now. So I got married in 2015. Okay. I got married in 2015, and that's how I got my green card. So I know how that can be difficult. Okay. Ayo, do you think in the future pilots would be replaced with AI, something like the Airbus Dragonfly project? And also, thank you for answering the question. So, Ayo, I think AI is definitely a thing to be concerned about. And by the way, the goal now is some of this, like the Dragonfly project that you're talking about, they're trying to go into single pilot operation, and designing the airplanes, making them single pilot rated in a way where one pilot can fly them. In as much as that is definitely it's a possibility, all right. But to not have any pilot on board at all, where it's just strictly AI, I think that is still going to take some time. I think that will still take some time. But one thing, like they say, the closest alligator to the boat right now is the government adopting the idea of single pilot operations. I think that is something that we don't want as pilots. All right, it just doesn't make sense in my opinion. And I might be biased because, I'm a pilot, right? It's like you're taking away jobs. So I don't want that. So I might be biased. But the truth is that if you think about it on several levels, I mean, there are times even 2 people make mistakes, right? 4 people on an airplane make mistakes. And having one person, to handle things. Yeah, I know they will have a backup somewhere on the ground, somebody that is there, but it's not the same. What if your backup can also make mistakes, right? So the point here is, relying on one person to be in an airplane, be the one flying, isn't something that I feel like should be adopted. That is my opinion. Okay. And hopefully it doesn't come through because I'm biased. But yeah, it's definitely a threat. All right. I see it as a threat, and it is coming. At what point, we don't know yet. Okay. But it is coming. All right. How should I follow the modular routes? Please tell us step by step. All right. Modular routes. Find a flight school. Okay. Find a flight school in your area. I don't know where you are. I don't know where you live. I don't know what country you're in, because the procedures will be different. But it starts by reaching out to a flight school. Okay. Once you find a flight school, check them out. Make sure that they have decent airplanes. Okay. Make sure they have good instructors, decent facility. All right. Ask them questions about their curriculum. Ask them questions about their past students. Where have they gone to? What have they achieved? What airlines do they fly for? All right. Ask them questions about their, their tuition structure, any incentives they may offer. If you decide to pay X amount, are they going to offer you any discounts? Okay. Ask them what happens when the flight needs to be canceled. Ask them what happens if the weather goes bad. Ask them what happens if the airplane, you show up to the airplane and there's maintenance. Are you going to be charged for it? Are you going to, you depart on a flight and you have to return because there's a problem with the airplane or something? How is that handled? Questions like that, right? Once you're satisfied with the answers they give you, then I guess you can sign up. And of course, make sure they offer modular. Now in the US, that modular is called Part 61. All right. I think I've shared that before. Part 61 training, where you kind of, you can do as you wish in a way, and another thing I will also say is, if you're in the US, you can do some of your written tests. If you're in the EU region, you can do your written tests as well. So what are the materials they will want you to have to study for those tests that you have to take, your ATPL test and all those things, right? So that way you can go and work on those things. So you try to knock off the theory part, as much of it as you can, to save yourself some money with an instructor. Okay. And then you start to fly based on your timing, your schedule that works. And step by step, like I said, I think it's really depends on where you are, what the flight school offers. And but it starts with reaching out to a flight school. Okay. Kwedu, I see Nigerian Jollof from church. Mothers from home. That is cool. I've never heard that one before though, but that's a new one. Anje Nzanza. I hope I said that correctly. Any African scholarship cadet programs you know of? Unfortunately, none right now. None that I know of right now. Tom, hi. Hi, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining. Duan, I'll be in my mid-30s by the time I start my pilot training, as I was making money doing business, but couldn't go to college. At this age, should I even consider getting the degree as a backup at all? That's a great question. You see, your degree is not needed in flight training, okay, or to become a pilot. Now, so one thing I want you to think about is getting your rating, if it's your desire, will be the priority at this age. Okay, mid-30s, getting your degree will be important. Now, do you need a backup? That depends. Remember, you can always get your degree. All right. Even if you start training now, you can get your degree when you're 40. You can because you can do it online. I mean, you can get your degree online in any country right now. If you're in India right now, you can get your degree in the US while you're still online. So it all depends on how you structure this. The reason why I'm saying that is because with your degree, you have the flexibility of either doing it now or later. Okay. Considering it's more of a backup, you're not trying to use it right now. On the other hand, your training is time-based because you're in your mid-30s. So let's say you're 35, okay? and you need to retire by 65, you only have 30 years left to maximize whatever aviation career or ranks you want to get to. So that is already on the time crunch. I mean, not time crunch, 30 years is still a long time, right? But you get what I mean. You already have a timeline stated. But with your degree, it's something that just in case something happens, just in case, right? So personally speaking, okay, this is just me, I would pursue something that I know that, hey, the time is ticking, and then go for the degree at some point later. Okay. I hope that makes sense. All right. I want to catch up. I may not be able to answer all the questions. I've spent an hour 30 minutes now. It's exactly an hour 30 minutes. And it's but I'm so happy for. By the way, if you haven't liked the video, please go ahead and like the video. I appreciate it. The other thing I'll say is that if you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe. Next thing is, please know that you can always reach out to me on Instagram. That's the quickest way I can reply to you. Comments on Facebook are great. I mean, I said Facebook. on YouTube are great. But sometimes when I reply to the comment, okay, and then you go back and reply or respond to my reply or to my response, if that makes sense, I don't get a notification, okay, because I've already responded to it. It's weird. I don't know why YouTube is designed that way. I wish they had like a personal message where you can see a thread of your messages in one place and get notified of responses, but I lose that. So it may seem like I'm not replying to you because I've responded once to that thread of your comment. It doesn't notify me again. So I hope that makes sense. Maybe I'm the one that didn't set it right, but I think that's how it works. I've been on YouTube for some time now, so I think that's how it works. So that's why I like Instagram, where if you reach out to me, we can chat and I can see the thread, I can see the information, I can see what we've talked about. I can see that information well later on down the line, All right, let's see. Let me see what else I can handle here. Steven, how's it going? It's going well. Thank you very much. It's going well. I'm happy that a lot of you are asking questions. I appreciate that, by the way. That's something that because if I come on here and nobody's online, it's like I'm talking to myself. All right, Kwedu Anjay, from what has been said, I don't think so. Oh, okay. All right, let's see. How long does the BA usually do their speeder program? I know with Aer Lingus and TUI, they do it for 5 years. So from what I've heard from Aviation, the speedbird program, from what I've heard, when they launched it after the pandemic, they said they had funds for the next 5 years to cover this training, right? For the next 5 years. Now, has that changed? I don't think so. And they've done it twice. So that means they still have at least 3 more to go, So that is what I can say on the projection. So my assumption is that it's still going to continue for at least for the next 3 years. David White, you're from the UK. Great. All right. So yeah, great. So yeah, UK, I would say you focus on cadet programs. You have a lot of them out there, fully sponsored programs. I think you should focus on them. Lux Banda, is the Spirit program open to all nationalities? No, unfortunately. I know that is a big disappointment to a lot of people. Unfortunately, no. And hey, just so you guys know, I think I've covered this earlier, right? I'm always looking for opportunities for everybody, okay? And whether you're from UK, EU, whatever. I know what it means to get into the aviation industry. I know what it means to be sponsored. I know what it means to get to achieve that goal. And that's why I share all the information I share on this channel. That's why I talk about the things I talk about. That's why I spend time, interacting with you, messages, video calls, things like that, because lives get changed in the process. I've a lot of messages coming randomly like, hey, thank you so much. They found my videos helpful. They've now gotten selected by TUI, or they've gotten selected by BA, or they've got selected by Lux Air. The list goes on, right? So I know what it means, and I honestly do not take it lightly. So my desire for you is to find opportunities that work for you. I know a lot of people from Africa, for example, don't get those opportunities. I'm from India. Sorry, just to move on. I'm from India. I want to do my training in the USA, but my visa is rejected for 3 times. What can I do? All right. This is always a difficult one as well. All right. This is always a difficult process. So you have the money to train. You have the the means to get it done, but somehow they just don't want you to, they don't issue you the visa. You have the documents. And a lot of people from Nigeria, a lot of people from India experience this. So my advice will be this, right? If your goal is to become a pilot, okay, maybe you should look into other places. I know that may be a little bit disappointing because I know a lot of people want to train in the US, at least from what I know. People from India, other parts of the world, they want to train in the US. So maybe looking into training another place, if that is your main goal. Okay, your goals will be important in deciding what you do. On the other hand, if you really want to be in the US and train in the US, then don't give up. I know it's going to be frustrating, but try again. That's the best thing I can say. But if your goal is just to train so that you can fly, then maybe you consider applying to another organization elsewhere. All right, we are 1 hour 35 minutes in. Let's see. I'm in the UK, Manchester. Will the school give me a step-by-step program? Yes, the school will give you some recommendations, Platino, right? The school will give you. So, for example, I know Skyborne stopped their modular route because they are so packed with the integrated training and training candidates for Speedbird, Speedbird program, the British Airways, So Skyborne might not be an option, but I know there are other schools out there which I can start giving recommendations. Because I'm giving them free advertisement. But anyway, what I mean is, reach out to flight schools out there, and see what they offer. Let them, and see what the program is like. See if it works for you. Let's see. A question that has been posed many times. What are my chances to become a pilot at 40 years old in an airline company? Kareem, see, your chances at 40, I believe, are still high. Now, if you are looking into like sponsored programs, scholarship programs, depending on where you're from, sometimes they limit the age. There's like an age limit that you can apply. So maybe some of them may say you need to be between 18 and 40 or 18 and 35, But if you are trying to train, like it's a self-sponsored path where you pay for your training, get your ratings done, then 40 is definitely still a good age. The reason why I'm saying that is because majority of the people that start a second career in aviation are starting at the age of 40. Why? Because they've spent a number of years maybe with the military. As you know, aviation is mostly, when you think about the total number of pilots, almost half of them are from the military. Okay, maybe more than half of them actually have some military background, spend a few years in the military. And considering in the US, at least I believe you have to spend, I don't know how long you have to spend, but let's, on average, most people spend 10 years or more. Some people spend 20 years. So by the time they're starting their career at the airlines, they are like in their 40s, and they still spend another 20 years or so, 25 years or so at the airlines, which is a long time. So yes, it's definitely not too late. I don't want you to think it's too late. I don't want you to think there are opportunities for you. There are. Let's see. Hi, Steven. Hi, Harry, son. Okay, thanks for joining. Ashke, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Just please forgive me if I say your name incorrectly. But yes, South Africa is definitely a cheap one, and New Zealand as well. And maybe you can consider Spain. Right? Spain is definitely a good place to train as well. Do you know about Epic Flight Academy? Yes, I do. I do know the flight school. It's good. From what I know, a lot of people have trained there. I haven't, honestly. This is just me. I'm not trying to sell the school and anything. I've never heard anything terrible or bad about the school. Okay, that is just my honest feedback on that. But I've heard about the school. Since people are ready to work in any country for experience, are there opportunities available for foreigners in countries like Indonesia, Philippines, or Africa? So I would be specific about this. See, Africa, yes, I know that for a fact that a lot of people from foreign countries still work in different airlines in Africa. Indonesia and Philippines, I'm not sure, because I feel like a lot of people are looking for jobs in some of these areas. I mean, I've gotten messages from people that tell me that they have their ratings, they have their license, but they haven't gotten a job. So something to keep in mind. But in Africa, I know that, I know a lot of people still get hired there. That has reduced, not as much as it used to be, but it is still something that is ongoing. When I get my FAA licenses, will I be able to fly any place of my choice? So what happens is that when you get your license, you can convert your license. Okay, you can convert your license from FAA to any other country's license. All right. So depending on what country you're in, you can convert your license. And what you have to do is you have to take maybe an exam in that country to do your conversion. Sometimes you might have to do like a flight test as well. All right. Sometimes you might have to do a flight test as well for that country. Boyini. I see that you want to connect. So one thing I always say is, I've always thought about creating like what do you call this thing? A Discord server so that people can connect. I haven't decided on that, so that people can connect with one another, share information, because I know a lot of people from different parts of the world are here and you're all looking for opportunities. And sometimes all it takes is one person sharing that information. One thing I always say is I don't know everything, but if somebody shares that information with me and they want me to share it with other people, I would share it on the channel as well. But sometimes having like a server where people connect, because this is really what this channel is all about: aspiring pilots, people looking for opportunities in the aviation industry. And it's almost like a central meeting point for a lot of people from different parts of the world. And being able to have a place where you can share information, not necessarily through comment. This is one way, right? But in a server where you can actually share messages, share information, I think that might be good. But I also know that it can become a little overwhelming to manage, and that's why I've hesitated on that. But something I'm thinking about. Anyway, what reminded me of that was this comment, all right? Trying to connect with this person, which I felt like, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. All right. Let's see. Thank you so much for your response, answers, your videos. Thank you, Kareem. Let's see, Platino. If someone has a medical condition that makes a pilot unfit, can the medical examiner make an exception if that condition is not an issue at all? Yes, those examiners know what is not an issue versus what is an issue. Yes, so there are times where they can make an exception for candidates. Absolutely. Next one, Andrew Wilson. What's your opinion on the effects of Brexit now that UK prospective pilots have to train with the UK ATO, which are far more expensive than the European flight schools? What's the impact on pilot jobs? So, Andrew, what I know is that, for example, the FTE Jerez, right? Is in Spain, right? And they still train there. Like British Airways still uses them, So my guess, which I'm not too vast in the knowledge of the impact of Brexit and the UK and how it affects the training environment. But one thing I'll say is that I think they still are able to train in other places, from what I know. And even like the Skyborne program, some of your training can be done in the US as well with Skyborne. And FTE Jerez is the other one with with the FTE school, right? FTE Jerez, yeah. So in Harita, right? So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I believe they're still doing the training, but I honestly, I can't say much on that. I don't want to say the wrong things because I'm not too sure how it's impacted them, But also something to keep in mind is that these schools negotiate, or the airlines negotiate a rate with the school as well. So in as much as the cost of training may seem high for somebody coming from just the street, the airlines are able to negotiate a rate that is often lower. Let's see. D1, yes, there's a Canadian who helps people around the world, just like you, on YouTube and Discord. It would be a good idea. Thank you for letting me know that. Actually, I didn't know. I think that's a good thing. Like I should work on that. My worry is always, just sometimes it becomes too much. I don't know. That's my thought process. Anyway. And you're welcome, Platino. Would a older candidate be seen as a negative for employees since they would be getting younger candidates? No, that's the thing I would say, all right? A lot of times, your age can also be the reason why you get hired, right? And sometimes, it can be the reason why you're able to demonstrate those competencies that we talk about. So I don't think it's a negative. No, it's not. They'll basically see me as spending less time with them compared to someone younger. Remember that for most part, they usually get their return on investment in like the first. If it's not a cadet program where you actually are trained from zero and you already have your ratings, then they usually get their return on investments in the first 2 to 3 years at most, right? To train you, maybe even in the second year, So not really. Now, I know some airlines do have some age requirements or limits that they stipulate for people they hire. I know that is true, but in general, that's not common. Will it be possible for me to become a pilot without me studying physics back in at SHS? But then these are my electives: government, economics, geography, elective math. So one thing that I know they always say that they need is one science. It doesn't have to be physics. Okay. They always need a science grade, or at least one science needs to be included. So maybe chemistry, maybe physics, maybe I don't know which other science class you may have been able to take. I don't know. Where's the message? Oh, I see. Just so yes, including math and English, of course. So one thing I'll say is I don't know if you have any other science background, all right, other than this ones, but you don't have to study physics. That's what I mean, all right? You don't have to. Ashka Diwan would need admins, moderators, as that's how it works. Oh, that's how it works. Okay, it's completely community driven because he himself was training and has a wife. Oh, I see what you mean. You know what? Do you mind reaching out to me on Instagram if you don't mind? Maybe you have more experience in that, because I honestly I have not really had it. I mean, I have a Discord server, but I don't use it. And I've joined some groups before, but I don't really participate in it as well. But I would appreciate your insight on that if you do have any. But I have to go, guys. It's been great. I thank you so much for spending time with me. Thank you for all the questions. It's been lovely just getting to meet people from everywhere. Lots of you guys. And one thing is I try to do this maybe once every week, depending on what's going on. So I definitely do appreciate your time. Thank you, guys. See you some other time soon. All right. Have a good night. Thank you, D1. I'll be expecting your text. Take care.